My name is Jeanne Reilly, and my business is Meant to Move. It's listed as Meant to Move Pilates on social media because somebody already had just the Meant to Move. But as you already stated, I teach both Pilates and Yamana body rolling.
Hmm. Any other disciplines and stuff that you teach as well? Like we're always more than one trick ponies, right?
Well, my background, actually, our backgrounds are very similar. I was reading some of your history last night, and I am also a social service type person. My
Yes.
first career, I was a community psychologist.
Okay.
So yeah, so my background is psychology, and I had finished my undergrad and I was working and decided I wanted to pursue it further. I
Hmm.
almost went for social work, which I believe you are a social worker is how you had it listed.
Yes.
And I was kind of torn between social work and community psychology, and I ended up with the community,
Okay.
which rather than looking specifically at the individual, tends to look at the greater
Larger
community.
system. Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
help set up systems. So that's what I studied and what I worked in for almost 20 years.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
isn't it, it's so fascinating now that we're in this fitness side of things, you look back and you realize that the social world psychology field is very similar in the fact that you can run off in 19 different directions and still be in psychology world, right? Whether it's
Yes.
community abuse, like sex ed, addictions, you can go wherever you want, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's
And I did very different things in that world. I was in the nonprofit world, but I also did corporate training. So even
okay.
within a community realm, you can do a lot of different kinds of things. And it's so applicable to what I teach now.
Oh,
I'm sure you,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what
Um,
made you decide to jump?
yeah, it's a big jump. So I was, it, well, my husband and I had our children later. We had a little bit of a
Mhm.
journey getting pregnant and having our kids. So when I had my third daughter, I was almost 40, and I was still
Mhm.
working in my other career. And so she was the third, and I was traveling a lot for work, and it was getting difficult. So, and
Yeah.
at that time, my husband's career was picking up. So financially, I was able to step out, and I was actually home for 8 years,
Ah,
raising
yes.
raising our kids,
Mhm.
which a lot of people said, had asked me if that was hard. And for me personally, we had waited so long for them to come. We had
Mhm.
worked, and I had worked a lot as my husband did all his training and got his career set up. I was so happy to get to be home.
Yes.
It's really, I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And,
Yes.
and I was not looking to go back to work. And
Mhm.
so I'm in my late 40s. I don't know, about 47-ish or 46 maybe. And I used to run. I used to be a big runner, and I became injured. And I was in a boot. I had gone, I had tried to get a lot of help and nothing was helping. Now it's like a
Yes.
year later. And my sister-in-law, who's a PT, suggested I try Pilates. And I did.
Ah,
And
yes.
within a relatively short amount of time, I could walk again without pain. And then I was running
Yes.
again. And I just was
It's
amazed. And all I
amazing,
could
eh?
think was, why doesn't the whole world know about this?
Yes, exactly. And what was her
Yeah.
hook? Like, what was the thing that she said? You should try Pilates because.
I was desperate. Like at this point, it really had been almost a year, and I'm a mover, and I couldn't do anything, and I was really frustrated. And I
Yes.
said to her, I said, "Well, there's not. I don't know if there's a Pilates studio nearby." I had heard about it in the past and was actually interested. I was curious.
Mhm.
So if I can tell another quick story,
Yes, absolutely.
um, when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, I was working at an agency that served adults with disabilities, and I worked in a group home. That was my first job out of college. Had all these weird hours, and I had this little studio apartment. I lived in Albany, New York. I was in downtown Albany, and I used to walk around the corner to this little studio, and the woman called them toning classes or something
Ah,
like
okay.
that.
Yes.
I, looking back at the history, I'm going to guess that was the time that the word Pilates couldn't be
Must
used.
have. Yes.
And I was in love with these classes, and I went faithfully 3 times a week, and I loved it. But then when I moved, and I could never find anything else like it. And
Hmm.
I always wondered, what was that magic this woman was teaching? And so I was always looking for that. And I went to gyms and I took step classes and I did aerobics, but nothing spoke to me the same way. And then, so then when my sister-in-law, so I kind of started hearing about Pilates, reading about it. It seemed like it might be what I was learning back then. So I was curious. And
Yes.
then I
You start
went
to like
and
draw the dots together.
yeah. And I think that's what this woman was teaching. And and then when I went to the studio not far from my house, which my sister-in-law Googled for me, told me, yes, indeed, there is a Pilates studio near you.
Yes.
And I went and I just fell in love with it. I love the detail, the thinking, the process. I love all of
Yes.
that.
Do you feel like the way that you found it, first with this magician and then second with this like miracle worker, that the way you teach is like this miracle working magician as well? Like you want people to experience that
Yes.
experience? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still get so excited. You know, you see change in the people that we're working with in their bodies, and I'm thrilled every time. I'm excited.
It doesn't get
I'm
old.
like, this is when all the confetti should fly and we should break out the champagne every time.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah, those are those wins. And like,
Mhm.
it never gets old. Like when people have that
No.
aha moment, they could stay with you for another 10 years after that moment, but that moment is like the one that I catch myself chasing after somewhere else in their
Yes.
work, right? And chase
Yeah.
after it somewhere else and then chase after it somewhere else. Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
good.
It's so great. It's awesome. My husband, he's like, stop being so excited about your job. He's getting on the end of, kind of, he's not phasing out. He's still working a ton, but he's done what he's done for a long time. And I'm always still so, so excited. And he just looks at me and thinks, wow, you know, amazing. So,
Well, that's the saying, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
find the job that you love and
yeah.
you won't work a day of your life. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So I feel blessed, having had the opportunity to have a second career and have it again. I wasn't looking to go back to work, but once I learned this work, I just I couldn't let go of it. And before, way earlier than I should have probably done it based on my knowledge base, I was signing
Yes.
up for the teacher training program. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I'd never dreamed that later in life I would have this opportunity. And I can't get enough now. I'm just always looking to learn more.
That's amazing. I'm
Yeah,
sure for everyone
yeah,
who's watching too, like just I feel so inspired by that excitement that you have for the work. Like that's one of those things that just makes for me that sense of like, okay, I like this and I'm
yeah.
that much more excited about it now. Like I recognize how much more of a
Good.
privilege I have to do this. Like
Yeah,
that's infectious. Like that's that
yeah,
joy that we should have in
yeah.
movement.
And Martin, it is a privilege. It really is. It's such a great thing. And I'm so grateful to the people who trust me,
Mhm.
put their vulnerability out there to allow me to
Absolutely.
help move them along.
Yeah.
And to be able to create. I don't know if I would have had the courage. I look at, and I have to say, I do listen to all of your interviews, but I'm always delayed because I'm always teaching at 10 o'clock. So I'm
Yes.
always
Yes.
listening to the repeats. But your one on age earlier really hit me
Okay.
because of,
Yeah.
for me personally, this journey I'll be turning 60 in April. So age is a huge deal
Amazing.
for me right now. And a huge deal. And the
Yes.
50s have been quite challenging in terms of body changes and learning my new body. But I feel
Hmm.
like it's been an advantage in terms of my teaching.
Yes.
All right, now I forgot. See, and now I forgot my train of thought where I was going with
Uh,
that. And that is age.
age. No,
Uh,
it's not
gosh darn it.
it's your excitement to drop a profound point. That's
Yeah, I was going to say something very profound. It'll
yes,
come back to me.
yes.
I'm
Can I
sorry,
ask
I
you a
lost
question?
that.
I'll ask you a question while you're thinking that through
Okay.
while it comes up. So just interrupt me if it comes back. What has been your favorite decade?
Well, I have different ones for different reasons.
Yes.
Mostly, I loved my 30s. I
Really?
felt like, yeah, I thought 20s were awful. You're supposed to suddenly, you graduate from whatever you graduate from, your training program, your schooling. Oh,
Yes.
And I remember what I was going to say. Can I go back? It was
Okay,
about the younger
go for it.
teachers.
Yeah, because I want to
It
say
was
something
about the
about
younger teachers.
I want to
Real
say something
quick.
about the 30s in a minute. So go
Okay,
for it.
so
Yes,
we'll go back to that. The younger
younger
teachers, I
teachers.
don't think I would have had the courage to do the career I am doing now in my 20s or 30s. And I see
Okay.
the younger teachers doing that, and I'm so impressed. And the reason I don't think I would have had the courage is I'm very conservative in terms of knowing how much income I have, that I have my health insurance covered, all of those pieces have to be all
Yes.
set up. And you don't get that in this career. It's not that set in stone. And a lot of people are in business for themselves,
Right.
or if they work for somebody else, they're not making a lot of money. And a lot of places can't afford to give insurance and
Right.
those kinds of things. So when I was taking those classes with the miracle worker, she actually asked if I would be interested in teaching. She was desperate for help. And I was like, I
Yes.
can't. And there was a little piece of me that said, I can't because I'm not able. But there was a big piece of me that wouldn't do it because of the other pieces,
Yeah,
the
fiscally it didn't
financial.
make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I have the freedom to not have to worry about that so much. So I really am blessed. So that was
Yes.
that part. That was that part. So,
Yes.
I hats off to the younger people, including yourself, who have made this a career. And I think it would be an amazing thing if we could really find some concrete ways. One of the things I've thought about, I don't know if I'll ever do this, but it would be so great to be able to hook up to the high schools, to the
Yes.
community colleges, to the colleges for the kids who are looking for more technical kinds of careers.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I think that would be an amazing way to, and part of that I think would be not only to train the Pilates piece of it or the movement piece of it, but the business piece of it, to really
Absolutely.
give them grounding, to understand what they need to start setting up, as difficult as it is, so that they
Yes.
are okay later on. They're okay in
Absolutely.
crisis. They're okay in illness, whatever that might be.
Yes.
So,
I think you might have a new niche there.
so I don't know, but it sounds a little overwhelming.
See, I'm naturally an entrepreneur, and I've had mentors in the past who sit me down and say, you are not a fitness trainer, you are not a personal trainer, you are a business owner, and your product happens to be fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So going from that mindset, I'm the type of person who will jump out of a plane and make the parachute on the way down.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right? Whereas other people want to be in a place where everyone comes to them, they could just take care of people and send them on their way, and that's it. But I hear you say that, and I want to like write down all the ideas and like reach out to 15 schools and see if anyone will want
Yes.
to try it and just go with that. And I'm going this Rolodex of people through my head, like the Leslie Logans and Heather Erdman, and who are these people that are already doing that, and why aren't they on a bigger scale? See how it's like everything starts to go, right?
Yes, yes. Well, if you do that, I'll jump in and help some way. I don't know if I want to
Sure.
lead it, but I'd be happy to help. So,
Everyone needs a wingman. That's fine. That's good.
so,
Yep. It's so funny. But that's true. And I like the fact that you see that. And those are those needs, those are those gaps that we need to fill.
yes.
So back to our 30s,
Oh, the 20s and 30s. Yes.
20s and 30s. So when I was 28, 29, I was married, and a friend of mine was a friend, a mentor? It might have been a mentor. And he said to me, watch out for when your wife turns 30. And I was like, well, why? Like, what kind of random warning is that, right? So, and what he was getting is that at 30, and like, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm quoting somebody now before people start to attack
Okay.
me on this. When women turn 30, they go through an identity crisis. They take stock of, am I married yet? Have I had kids yet? Am I in my career yet? Have I bought my house yet? Do I have this? Do I have that? Whatever dream they had of when they were 8, 9, 10, of where they'd be when they're an quote unquote adults, that was the point at which there's an identity crisis that happens. So he's like, watch out for 30,
Mm.
brace yourself for impact, sort of
That's
thing.
interesting. Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out to you. When I say that, what do you think about that? And agree or disagree?
I think I have to, so a combination. I agree, but I'm hopeful. I see my children, I have 3 children who are in their 20s. I think this next younger generation is different. So
Yes.
I do think they're a little different. I think they see the world a little differently,
Hmm.
especially women, especially young women. My
Different
daughter,
values, right?
yes, the values are different.
Hmm.
Marriage doesn't have to be part of the checklist by 30 or ever,
Right.
right? It's okay to go support yourself. It's okay to make the choice to not have children. Back when I was that age, that was kind of weird. You know, that wasn't
Right.
the usual. That wasn't the norm. And I think there was a little pity for you if you weren't married already or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. And thank God that's changing, right?
Yes.
So I do agree with that. I'm hopeful that it's changing. And I probably had some of that and probably achieved a lot of that later in my 20s. So
Hmm.
for the reason I think my 30s were so awesome is because I could stop worrying about all of that. And I
Right.
felt like I could hit the ground running with my career. I had finished my graduate school. I had gotten married in my late 20s.
Hmm.
My husband and I moved to Chicago. We were from the Northeast and we moved to Chicago. So I was in this great city. I had work opportunities that I didn't have in the smaller town that I was
Yes.
living in. And I loved it. It was great. It was,
Yeah.
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 There
Yeah.
was music, there were shows, there was Lake Michigan. It was wonderful.
Right.
So it was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I chuckled while you were saying that. I read Helen Hayes Pilates' comment, and she says, we do that at 40, 50, and 62.
Oh, in terms of reassessing and have we accomplished?
Yes.
That's an interesting perspective too. Yeah, there's always timelines. Yeah, and that's probably why this age thing is such a big, thinking about it now, such a big deal, turning 60. Have I truly done what I should be doing? Am I accomplishing things?
Mm.
Do I have enough time? And I will say I make decisions now with my business based on how much longer do I think I want to work? Do I want to stop working? I don't know, but those are thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? And then,
Hmm.
and the other thing that came up just as I was thinking this through is there's this identity crisis that men go through, women go through as well. But I think of, if your identity crisis, the simple, the easiest example is the guy who goes and buys a Corvette at 40, right? He just wants to do something, right? And so I had to do a talk a while back on transitions. And what they were saying is that those transitions that we go through in life, for example, at 35, I had been married for 10 years, 12 years at that point. We had 2 kids. We had purchased our home. We decided we weren't having any more kids. And we're at this stage of life where we are going to be in a holding pattern for the next 10 years, 15 years until the
Hmm.
kids are old enough to go off to university and
Hmm.
whatever. So there's these phases of life, like you're engaged, so you're excited about
Yeah.
getting married. You're married, then you're excited about having kids. You have
Hmm.
a child, then you're excited about having your second child. And then you
Yep.
have your final child, and then you're excited about buying your house, and then you're excited about your career, landing at your dream
Hmm.
job because you finish your, so you're always chasing after the next checkpoint, and then all of a sudden the checkpoints get further and further apart.
Hmm.
And that's that identity crisis. That's when the guy goes out and buys his Corvette stereotype because there's nothing else to chase after, right? Like, but I caught myself getting into that a little bit. Like when I around 35, I hit a little bit of an identity crisis because I did everything so early in life that by 35, I was just waiting for my kids to grow up.
Wow. And I was having my
Like,
first child at 30. I had my first son at 35.
yeah,
So it shifts things. And that wasn't the plan. It was later than we expected. But yeah, that's that is interesting. All right, I have to tell you. So my husband is also turning 60. I
okay,
hope he doesn't mind that I just said that. He
okay.
just bought a boat, his first boat ever.
There you go.
So
Why
he'll be
not?
on the water this summer. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those I love that. I mean, I think that,
So
I have a classic car. Like I think that people should have just something. If I won $10 million, I wouldn't spend $50 on a pair of jeans, but I would buy a $200,000 car. Like the cars are just my thing,
That's your
right?
thing.
That's
Yeah.
my thing. So I
Yeah.
think people should have their thing. Like I think that there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
um,
But the reassessment is real. And I definitely, I went through a period. So I have a home studio, which
okay.
I didn't say earlier. I worked for a couple of other studios when I first finished my training for about 3 years. And then I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I stepped away from those studios and I really contemplated purchasing some space and
Yes.
opening a bigger studio. And even once I had my home studio, I kept looking, I kept my eye out. My dream was kind of to have this bigger studio, to have staff working with me, to possibly try to connect to the high school or the vocational schools in the
Hmm.
area, to do some more training related to helping kids develop careers. And it just never kept quite seeming to work out. And every time I did the numbers, because I am very planful, the numbers weren't looking positive. In
Yes.
terms of the financials. So I stayed put, and I've had my home studio for it's about 7.5 years now. And
Great.
and then COVID hit. And
Hmm.
boy, I am really grateful that I sat put because,
Yes.
people are just having to close or
Hmm.
struggling. And so that's been an interesting process this past year to see that. And
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, and that I was reflecting on that this morning too. Like those moments in our life when we kind of listen to that voice and we don't try and
Hmm.
keep up with the Joneses and we don't try and just
Hmm.
manufacture the next step in our life.
Yeah. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. I was a little sad when when I felt like I made that final decision. I'm not going out. I'm going to keep my home studio. There was part of me that was sad about that. Um,
Okay.
because I felt like, well, maybe that's my last chance. But then I did a lot of reading. I've been studying with a lot of people, and I started to embrace this moment. And I actually have I'm doing so much more training in terms of my actual Pilates work and my Yamana work.
Yes.
And as
Hmm.
I've thrown myself into that, it's greatly impacting my teaching. And so I feel like my journey isn't even close to done. I'm not quite sure where it's going to
Yes.
go, but it's probably fuller than it would have been if I had just been totally immersed in business details. So for
Absolutely.
me, I'm not saying
And
that's a bad thing, but
that's
for me right now,
no.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that lends to the question of simply why. Like why did you want a bigger space? Why, you know what I mean? Because if the why was because you wanted to have a greater scope of influence and be able to do these different things, and now you're still landing at that place where you can have that and still continue your own education because education is important to you, sometimes we get caught up in the how
Hmm.
as opposed to the what.
Yes. And I think traditionally that's how it was being done. That's how I saw it being done. I felt like that's what was needed. You had to
Mhm.
have this a physical presence in the
Yes,
community.
right.
You had to have the big studio with lots of equipment. You had to have lots of people to
Yes.
teach. I think it's just what I was seeing. And there
Hmm.
is, and I do think there is a part of us that feels to make the great impact, we have to be known. And when you're in a home studio, you're
Right.
not always feeling like you're
You're
known in the
some,
same way or
yeah,
present,
you're
right?
semi-invisible in a sense, right?
Yeah. But I'm
Yeah.
finding out it doesn't have to be that way. So,
Yes. Yes. Can we talk about your Yamuna work?
absolutely. I love
Yes.
it. Love the work. Um, so I was a new Pilates teacher, and I taught at a studio in Easton. And the woman who had trained me and who owned the studio, I would, she didn't talk about it much. But I would watch her. She'd be teaching over on one side of the studio. I'd be teaching. And if somebody, they had some pain, the Pilates lesson just they weren't settling into that well. She would pull out these balls and she'd get these balls underneath
Hmm.
them and
Hmm.
they'd breathe. And then they'd get up and say they felt amazing. So I asked her, I said, so what is it? And it was interesting because she did it, but she didn't
What
really
was
talk
that?
to us about it, right? I said, what is that you're
Okay.
doing?
Yeah.
And so she, she told me what it was. We Googled it. I got signed up for the practitioner training. At the time, Yamuna is actually a woman. She is the creator of the work. Yamuna is her
Okay.
spiritual name. And at the time, she had a studio in Chelsea, New York City. So I went there and I did the first part of my training. And I was like a fish out of water. I did not know if it was for me. It was hard. It was awkward. And the second half of the training was going to be about 9 months later. And I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it. And the woman who owned the studio where I was said, well, yes, you're going to finish it. You're going. And it was sometime during that second half of the training where it really, something switched. And I had one of those aha moments. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I see. But didn't consider how it would benefit you. Mm-hmm. Ah, yes.
I can't even,
Yes.
yeah. It was one of those where you're crying because it's so amazing.
Wow.
And your
Yeah.
teacher's looking at you like, wow, wow, what just happened there? There's this overall, something's different.
Yes.
Other than the fact that my right shoulder, which was always so gripped, just let go and opened up. And that was it. And I started in
Yes.
off, especially during COVID. It was a big part of my studio before that, but now it is a very big part of what I'm
Yes.
working with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's
No.
so
Is it pretty easy for them to work on it on their own, sort of thing?
as they learn. So
Like virtually?
so just like with Pilates, there is a learning curve. It's not easy in the beginning. Every once in a while, I'll get people who come in the first time. When they would come into my studio, I could physically stretch them and I could get my hands on them and they could feel I want them to feel a quick, immediate, oh, that feels great, just to start to buy into it. It's a little more challenging now because I'm teaching them virtually.
Right.
I have a couple of people coming into the studio in person, but not many. But there's a learning curve and it's you really have to put yourself out there. So that's hard for people. And when you start getting these balls into points where people feel vulnerable, it can be very scary.
Okay.
So it's how you approach it, how you introduce it, how you bring people in where they feel safe. And then over time, I feel like just with Pilates, they start to understand it. The benefit of the yamana at home, because people are doing so much at home right now, is I feel like with Pilates, it's harder for them to remember, oh, I want to do a quick little mat class on my own. And they always say, I can't remember what to do. But the balls, they've got something physical. It's easier for them to remember what to do on their own in between their lessons.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And that's it. We were like, who's Yesterday Body Initiative, I think her name was. I can't remember what her business name was, but it was speaking to the fact that we want our people to take initiative with their workouts. So whatever is conducive to that happening is best.
Mm-hmm. And that is probably, I know you were talking about our favorite client.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
you kind of answered that.
Yes, that is it. Those who want to take initiative, be responsible for their health and well-being to the best of their ability. It's not a perfect world. We're not going to make everything 100%, but we want to be the best we can be. And it's hard for me now to work with people who just want to come in and me take them through a session and they leave it at the door when they go out. That,
Yes, I know,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
The people who
That
are, and I have this group of mostly women, but I do have a few young men actually who are embracing it. And I'm seeing them several times a week, and they get out and they're like, I did my chest, I did my hips, I did my legs, I'm ready to go. They're ready for the Pilates class because they've done all their yamana and stretched, and it's fun and it's exciting,
yes.
and they are owning it. Or they shoveled, I'll get a text, okay, I shoveled. What's the best thing for me to do after shoveling? Which I'm going to pull out my yamana
Yes, right,
balls.
right.
Or they come on, I felt my low back felt this way, and Jeanne, I did this, this, and this, and I was fine. They're proud of it.
That's amazing. Yeah, for sure. The
And
yeah, like that empowering. Yes, that's what I'm
yeah,
looking for. Yeah.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, go ahead. There's a little bit of a delay, so I'll let you go. Mm, amazing. Yes. Yes. Amazing. Yeah. Here's a few comments. Lilani Fitz said, "So glad you found the work. I personally benefited from you being trained in Yamada. LOL." And then, okay, amazing. Yeah, she's sweet. I had her on here too. She's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamie White says, "Sometimes these clients who you think are not quote unquote into it are sometimes the one that need us the most. I've learned this because I've moved several times in my career, and some of those not into it people were the ones most affected when I left." That's shocking.
And
It's
I
so funny,
agree.
eh?
Yes, I agree with that, Jamie. I feel like it, and it works the other way. Those you think are really into it, they aren't the ones who to maybe stay forever. And those we weren't sure about are
Yes.
with us for life, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Hmm.
That's
So we
when I
have to
was
be
in personal
careful.
training.
Yeah.
Yes, you got to treat everyone with that same respect and
Yes.
enthusiasm, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to just laugh at those times you'd have someone that you figure that they're not into it, and then they buy like another like 50 sessions, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's good. Amazing.
They started with me in, there's a mom in the area who started a running club called Spark Running Club. And she would prep them in between the track and cross country seasons.
Okay.
She was a runner. She had run in college. And um,
Oh, cool.
yeah. And one of my friends' son was a part of this group. And she said, we have no money, but would you be willing to work with these kids? I think.
Yeah. That's amazing. Hmm. Yes.
And he knows it like,
Oh, sorry, it's cutting out a little bit there. There you go.
Do you want me to try a different location in my house?
Oh, it's cutting out a little bit there. Oh, I think we're. Oh no, we're not.
is that better?
Sure. Okay. I think we're. Yeah, I think so.
That's better.
Yes. There's still a bit of delay, but it's clearer now.
Can you hear
Again.
me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So at any rate, so the young, so I don't know what you heard. Did you hear the part about the runner and the high school senior and
Yes, and the releasing the SOAS, and yes. Mm, yes. Yes. So, Gene, I'm curious. I was on a podcast last week, and the gentleman was like a business coach type. Sure. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Yes. There's a bit of a delay, but yes.
yeah, I'm going to move and see if I can find a little better spot. Let me see.
Okay.
Any better? Not so much.
It looks like it actually. Yeah.
Okay, we'll try here. We're having a lot of snow, and I think our internet's getting affected.
I know.
It hasn't
It's
stopped
same
snowing for
here.
like 2 days.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
the one thing I love having my ability to use both the Yaman and the Pilates. I'll have a
Yes. Amazing. Yes. Hmm. Yes. Yeah. So it's like Pilates makes us better at everything else in our life, and Yamanas make us better at Pilates, which is making us better at everything else in our
yes,
life.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the are how would you explain the benefits of Yamana and Pilates for young athletes?
To help reduce injury, A,
That's the main
and
one, eh?
B
Yeah.
to help reduce injury, and B to increase performance.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, run faster, run stronger, whatever you do, whatever sport you are in. you'll be able to perform it better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't it interesting that like there's very few promises in this fitness industry. Like we can't promise that you're going to lose weight. We can't promise you're going to get
Right.
6-pack abs by doing these
No.
3 exercises. But like you can pretty confidently promise that you're going to get stronger somewhere, somehow.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to me, stronger counts if my client can get up and down off the floor and play with her grandkids.
Yes.
If they can go for a
Yep.
hike, and
Yes. That's I call yeah, yeah, absolutely. I call that your podium performance. Like not everyone's going to the Olympics and getting a gold
right,
medal, but we all have that podium
right,
performance that we're
yeah,
chasing after. And that podium performance is chasing grandkids or getting off the
mm-hmm,
couch or, you know, doing gardening for 6 hours in a spring day and then not being sore the next day. That's your
mm-hmm.
podium performance, right? So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Wow. Well, we are at 55 minutes, Jeanne. And I love how fast these conversations go. Like,
It's amazing how fast. I was a little nervous to come on.
oh, you're
It
fine.
went very quickly. So when I first met you, it was on the speed networking with Brink. I don't know if you
Yes,
remember that.
with Brink.
And I
Yeah.
wasn't going to do it because I was nervous about that quick 5 minute have to say something. And I thought I should push myself and try it. And you were the first person who came on my screen.
Oh, was
And
I?
I was like, but see, good, I did it. Thank you so much for talking with me. It's amazing.
My pleasure. I'm just, yeah, you give us all just that excitement for movement and sharing movement with people. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I will sign you off and then I'll send you the replay later. And then you can share that with your friends and family and we can just continue to just do our work. So this is great.
Excellent. Martin, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Have a great
Okay, I'll
day.
sign you off. Thank you
Bye.
too.